This is the last book on my Timmy's TBR that I had to get to. No, it's not. Hi everyone, my name is Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, and I'm about to start my January wrap-up. Every month I vlog my way through January and I tell you 1 to 2 minutes of information about each book I finished throughout the month. I've already finished a book, so I need to tell you about it. It is January 3rd and I have already finished one book, and that is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. And I forgot to grab the book, so now I have it. Here it is, and I really enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. R.F. Kuang can write anything, and I will read it. The way R.F. Kuang can take a fictional story and write such amazing social commentary into the fiction of the story is by far the best that I have seen from any author. And the way that R.F. Kuang can change genres is, again, the best I've seen from any author that I have ever read. In this book, we are really looking into racism in publishing, racism in the writing industry, and even in the book reviewing industry, less so, but also in there as well. We kind of take a deep dive into all the aspects of publishing and writing and releasing a book and really looking into what is wrong in those societies towards people of color and authors of color. In this book, we follow June and Athena. Athena dies in the first chapter of this book. Athena is a fairly well-known author. Her first book did very well. June's did not. They are friends and they kind of came up in the publishing world together, but Athena has done much better. When Athena dies, June is there. She sees that Athena has a brand new draft of her new book and takes it and sells it to a publisher as her own. This book was about Chinese labor workers in World War I, and Athena is of Chinese descent and wrote it from a person speaking about their own heritage. June is white and is trying to pass this off as that she is but isn't. She never flat out says that she is anything other than white, but she tries to make it very ambiguous, and her publishers help her do this. They help her change her name so that it's more an ambiguous sounding name that maybe could be of someone of Chinese descent, and they really try to pass the book off as own voices even though it's not. And obviously people start to realize that it's not. They start to kind of see that maybe it doesn't sound like something that this author would write, and there's a lot of drama and questions around the authorship of this book. And the only thing I didn't absolutely love about this book was being in June's head the whole time. June was an exhausting character. She was a horrible character, and that is the point. And I do understand that, but I do think it would have been nice to have even just a couple of chapters at the beginning or the end from another perspective, maybe even Athena's, maybe someone else who I'm not going to mention in this book because it might reveal something about the twist, so I'm not going to say a name. It might have been nice to have a couple chapters from a couple other perspectives, either at the beginning or the end, just to give us a break of being in June's head, because June was exhausting. June was delusional. June, after a while, told so many lies to people that she started to believe her own lies. And she didn't start off great. Like, she started off horrible, and by the end, she was a train wreck. Like, whoa, June. That's all I can say. June lost her mind. That being said, I gave it a very high 4-star. I really did enjoy this book, and I really think that everyone should read it. If you are consuming books, which I'm assuming if you're watching this, you're consuming books, this is a great look into publishing, and I'm sure it's very close to the mark because we have seen so many things in real life, dramas with authors, with publishing over the years, showing us that these things are very close to the truth, and I'm sure R.F. Kuang pulled on their own experiences at times with this book. And I think that everyone should read this book. It's hard-hitting, it's excellently written, and I personally will read anything R.F. Kuang wants to put pen to paper for, and I will be doing that this year by completing with the Poppy War. So it is January 5th, and I have 2 books to tell you about. The first one is Sophie Lark's There Are No Saints. This is a dark romance book that I got from KU that follows a serial killer and a girl and their romance. So in this book, we follow Cole and Mara. Cole is our serial killer. He mostly kills men. He actually kills them and butchers them and like puts their bones inside his art, like his sculptures, because he is an artist. There's also a rival serial killer though, who is Alistair Shaw, and Alistair kills females and is very flashy with his kills. He like displays his kills, and the policemen have like given him a name, and he's a serial killer that they're like trying to track down. They're not really trying to track down Cole because they don't really know about him. So Alistair, trying to convince Cole that he is like the better serial killer, leaves Mara for him. He like captures her, leaves her almost dead. She's very, very injured, and leaves her where Cole will find her, so that basically Cole has to finish the job. Cole does not want to get wrapped into this, so he just leaves her. He's like, she's almost dead anyway. She will just die on the side of the road, and someone else will find her, and it will be someone else's problem. So he leaves her. She, being the strong girl that she is, gets herself up, gets herself to the street, and gets herself saved by a passing car. She goes to the hospital. She survives. She continues living her life. Cole finds out that she survives, and it starts him off in like a stalker obsession with this girl. Who is she? How did she survive this? I need to know more. And they start a romance. The thing I liked about this book was the serial killer element with this like rival serial killer. I found that really interesting, and it really played out near the end of the book. The romance I did not love. It ended up feeling like a bully romance to me, which maybe I should have suspected with it being a serial killer romance, but I don't love bully romances, and that's what it kind of gave me the vibes of. That was kind of not my favorite, so we ended up giving this 3 stars, and I don't think I'm going to continue on with the series, but if someone told me it was mostly following the serial killer rivalry, I could be convinced. The second book I finished was Never Been Kissed by Timothy Janofsky. This is a second chance author for me because I did not love You're a Mean One, Matthew Prince, but thankfully, I'm so glad I did try again, because I really did like this YA romance. It was so cute and it was so fun, and I really did like it. In this book, we follow Ren and Derek. So Ren, on his 22nd birthday, gets very, very drunk and kind of announces that he's never been kissed. He only came out to his family and friends about a year ago, and he has never been kissed, but he has had 4 almost kisses. And after those kisses, he's written emails that he never did send to these people, kind of talking about their almost kiss. He's very drunk. He sends these emails. The next morning, he gets an email back from one of the recipients, which is Derek, saying, you know, I never really felt that way about you, but I'm going to spend the whole summer with you, so maybe we'll see what happens. And we find out that Derek's actually working at the drive-in movie theater that Ren is the new manager of. And they spend a summer together trying to save the drive-in movie theater from being bulldozed into a parking lot. Part of this book, though, is that we're following Ren as he discovers more about his sexuality and finding out that he may also be demisexual. And we follow him as he goes through this process of self-discovery. And I really did like this book. It was a very cute YA romance, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. So it is January 11th, and I have finished 2 books, and I left it upstairs. So I'll just insert a picture of the book because I don't want to walk all the way upstairs to get it. The first one was Blaze Island by Catherine Bush. This is a cli-fi novel that I read for TBR-thon. It has been on my shelves for a couple of years, so I'm really glad I got to it. I did only give it 3 stars. There were things about it that I did like and things about it that were just okay for me, and we'll go into that right now. So basically, this follows Miranda. Miranda, at the age of about 7, 8 years old, her father packed her up and moved her to this island. He was a world-renowned climate scientist, and he was now getting death threats. This was in the time where people did not necessarily believe that climate change was real, and there were a lot of deters to climate change, and he was getting death threats, and he feels the need to pack up Miranda and take her someplace safe. So they move, they change their names, they move on to this island. Fast forward to the present day, about 10 years later, Miranda is about 17, 18 years old. And also we follow a young gentleman of about the same age who also lives on the island named Caleb. So at the beginning of this novel, there is a horrible, horrible hurricane. We're seeing that it's like destroying the world. Weather is very, very, very bad. Horrible things are happening. Floods, deaths, all sorts of things are happening. And her father is very concerned by what he's seeing. He feels like he knows how to fix it, but he doesn't know how to get people's attention with what he thinks needs to happen. He invites these corporate people to the island, and they come to see what his ideas are. And we kind of follow Miranda as she discovers what's been going on, what her father's been doing for the last 10 years, etc., etc. I did find the story rather interesting, and the way it was told was very different, but we did move from past to present a lot in this book without actually really telling us that was happening. There was no chapter breaks. It was just all of a sudden from one paragraph to the next, we were in a different timeline. And I found that at times, because certain things were very similar in both timelines, I was getting confused for a time of what timeline I was in. And that was really what I didn't love about this book so much. I did find the ideas about what was going on with the climate and figuring out what was going on this island were very interesting. Some of the science definitely went over my head, but I don't think that deterred from my enjoyment of the book. It was really just a lot of times I was confused of where we were in the story. The second book I read was Scene of the Grind by Tanya Kepps. This one I read off KU. This is the book club book for Nicole from Dusty Book Sniffers Book Club. I will link Nicole down below if you want more information. Nicole is going to actually be working through this entire series over on her Discord, and I think I'm going to continue. I had a good time with this. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was a cute, cozy. We follow Roxy. Roxy recently divorced. She was a lawyer, has now moved kind of back home and opened up a coffee place on the boardwalk. The boardwalk is actually not quite open yet. It's still kind of waiting for its grand opening. So when she gets there, she runs into her old high school flame, Patrick, and we kind of see if they might rekindle their romance. Roxy goes to see the bookstore owner down the street, and when she arrives, the bookstore owner is dead on the floor holding a donut from Roxy's shop. This gets Roxy kind of in the middle of the investigation because also her aunt is the landlord for this bookstore and has recently raised the rent. So there's a little bit of drama between these two individuals. Now, one of them is dead, so her aunt is one of the main suspects. So she wants to clear her aunt's name, and she decides to kind of figure out what happened to this bookstore owner. My favorite part of this book was this small town and all the eccentric characters that are in this small town. It really gave me those cozy small town vibes. And the mystery was pretty good too. The only thing I didn't love about this was there were a couple of love interests. There was Patrick. There was also the sheriff, and he was one of the love interests as well. And for a little while, I thought there was going to be a love triangle, and then it turned very insta-lovey very fast with one of these individuals. Like the fastest I've ever seen an insta-love situation happen. It was crazy fast. So that wasn't my favorite, but I still think I am going to continue with the series because I do really like the small town vibes, and the mystery was fun. And it was really fast paced and easy to read. The writing style was very, very consumable. I kind of fell into it and read the whole book in almost one day. It was very fast and very easy to read. It is January 13th, and I have finished my buddy read of Little Fires Everywhere with Coda. This book does not have an easy 2-second blurb of what it's about. It doesn't really have an overarching plot necessarily. It's much more character focused. But I would say that the main part of this book is really following mothers, different types of mothers, different things mothers go through. And it really makes you think. And it brought up so many amazing topics of discussion that Coda and I could have with a buddy read. I highly recommend doing this with a friend or a book club because there are so many discussions and so much commentary around motherhood that it was so fascinating. In this book, we follow Mrs. Richardson, or Elena, and Mia, and Mrs. Richardson owns the house that Mia and Pearl, her daughter, move into. Pearl is the same age as a lot of Mrs. Richardson's children. They kind of all go to the same high school, so they become friends. That kind of links the two families together. Also, Mrs. Richardson's youngest daughter really feels kind of out of place in her home and finds a kindred spirit in Mia, and Mia kind of takes her under her wing and becomes almost like a surrogate parent to Izzy. And this starts a complex set of things going on amongst these characters, which I can't talk about because it's not in the synopsis, and I want you to figure it out for yourself. And you may have already read this book because it's been out for a while and there is a TV show about it, but like still, I'm not going to give spoilers away just in case. But we also follow Mr. Richardson as he takes on the case of BB and the McCoys. BB is a coworker of Mia's, and she, during a very hard time as a single parent struggling with postnatal depression, leaves her daughter at a fire station. Her daughter is now being adopted to this other family, and BB is now trying to get her rights back as a parent. And we watch this go through the court system. Mr. Richardson is one of the lawyers for the family that is trying to adopt this little girl. And there's a lot of discussion about who should have the right to raise this little girl. It was a beautiful book. I gave it 4.5 stars. It really is a character study into motherhood and different types of mothers and very complex issues. And I think the author did a fabulous job with what they were trying to do. Like I said, 4.5 stars. And I really had a great time reading this with Coda. It is January 15th, and I have finished One Dark Throne by Kendari Blake. This is the second book in the Three Dark Crowns series. I was really excited to pick this up because there was a cliffhanger in the first book, and I have been a while getting to the second book. And now that I'm back in this world, I'm really hoping to read the other two books this month as well. As we go through this wrap-up vlog, you will know if I've accomplished that. I really hope that I do.
I did not do it.
Because the world is so fresh in my mind, and this also ended with some pretty major things happening at the very last bit of this book. We've learned some things have happened, and I need to know what's happening. I ended up giving this 4 stars. The beginning of this book was a little bit choppy for me because instead of following perspectives, we follow like different places. So every couple of pages, we would move to a different place and a different set of people that were in that place. And I found it a bit choppy. I should probably tell you what this is about. This follows 3 sisters. They are triplets. One is a poisoner, one is an elemental, and one is a naturalist. They are separated when they are very, very young, grow up separately, and now that they're 16, they need to fight to the death to see who will inherit the throne. So in this book, they are separate at the beginning of the book, and they're all in different places. So we keep moving from sister to sister, and there's a lot of periphery characters, and it took me a minute to really settle back in. I think the problem with that was that it had been so long since I read book 1 that I had to almost remember everyone again. But I think it was actually a really great sequel, and I think I will enjoy books 3 and 4 if I get to them quickly and don't have to go through that process again of remembering who everybody is, because I don't need it now. It's really fresh from reading this book. So that's the plan, and we'll see what happens. So it is the 16th of January, and I finished 8 Perfect Hours by Leah Lewis. This book, I went into thinking it was a romance. It is not a romance. It is a contemporary fiction with a romance subplot. And even that is somewhat small in this book. It's very much focused around Noelle and her life and where she is in her life and where she wants to be in her life, as well as the people around her, her mother, her brothers, her best friends, etc., etc. And that's what this focuses on. There is a romance in this book, but it's not as much of a romance as I thought going in. So this follows Noelle. As I said, Noelle is stranded at the start of this book in a blizzard on the side of the road, does not have what she needs to kind of wait out the weather, when a knock comes at her window, and it is Sam asking if she wants help, if they can kind of get through this being stuck on the side of the road together. He has food, he has a phone charger, and they kind of spend the next hours on the side of the road together. He is an American, he's going back home, and he does, and she does not see him for quite a bit of the book, but throughout the book, they keep finding each other. They keep running into each other, and it's almost like fate is pulling them together. Now, in between these coming together things, we find out that Nell is currently the caregiver of her mother. Her mother had a stroke a few years earlier, which has kind of brought upon her some anxiety and depression, and her mother is basically housebound. She is scared to leave her house, and that has put Nell into a caregiver role with her mother. Also from the strain of this, and also from losing a friend previously in this book to a car crash, is dealing with mental health issues of her own. She also has a friend in here that is dealing with postpartum, so that is something that we cover in this book as well. And there is also a little talk of suicide in this book. It's not on page, but it has happened in the past, and it's discussed by a family member of the person. So please keep that in mind. This is very heavy. And I really wanted to mention that because it doesn't look super heavy. It looks like a cute romance, and it covers very heavy topics. So I could see a lot of people picking this up, not checking trigger warnings, because why would you with a cute romance? And then stumbling into something that maybe they weren't prepared for. So I just wanted to let you know about that. I did really like how mental health was covered in this book. I felt like it was very well talked about. As someone who has been a past caregiver for a family member, I really did relate to Noelle and how she was feeling in some of the instances in this book. And I really did understand her as a character. There's a lot of talk in this book of fate, though, between Sam and Noelle. They keep finding each other. Like I said, they keep running into each other. If you miss your moment in fate, how many moments do you keep getting? Does fate keep pulling you back together? I did really enjoy this. It was a heavier read than I was expecting, but I did find it very good and enjoyed my time with the book, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. So it is the 20th of January, and I finished 2 books, so I need to let you know about them, and they are a stark contrast. We have The Improbable Magic of Cynical Witches. This is a sapphic YA romance. And I did not like this book. This was a 2-star read, which I believe at this point of filming is my only 2-star read of the year. So it's my worst book so far of the year. This follows Eleanor. She works in a witchy shop in Salem, kind of selling like tchotchkes to tourists who come to Salem for like witch trial stuff. She's in the store when 2 people walk in. One is Pix and the other is Pix's cousin, forget the name. And they are part of a coven and invite Eleanor into their coven. They are not magical witches. They're more like, Wiccan witches and have a coven, and they're trying to like cleanse Salem of this bad history. Pix and Eleanor start a relationship, and I would have liked to have followed that more closely. We really focused on a past timeline of Eleanor and her previous relationship with a girl named Chloe, and that relationship was very toxic and a lot of things happened. And even in the present timeline, there was a lot of toxic things going on. There were multiple kind of relationships that we were following, and I just didn't really enjoy any of them. And I think we followed the past one way too much. There was a stalking incident that happened, and I didn't really appreciate how that was covered. There's a sexual assault that happens in this book, not fully and not to our main character, but it's talked about, and the way it's handled, and there's really not a lot of pushback to it. I just didn't like the look of that either. There was multiple things I didn't like about that. I did like the witchy elements with like the tarot cards at the start of each chapter. I did like that, but that was about it. I didn't really love the relationships in here, and considering it was a YA romance, I just felt like a lot of things didn't really fit. So that's how I got to my 2-star rating. However, the next book I finished was How High We Go in the Dark. And this book is my first 5-star of the year, which is why I'm saying we have contrast here. We have very big swings of books that I've read this week. This is a cli-fi book. It is set in the year about 2030, and the Arctic is melting. And when it melts, a disease that has been frozen in the ice is released and sends the world into a pandemic. There's very heavy topics of how the pandemic is handled. We look into how death can become even a business during the pandemic. Each chapter is a short story, but they are all connected in some way. So the first short story is one of the people in the Arctic who find this disease. Then we follow people who are trying to come up with cures for the disease, or, studying the dead bodies to find out what is exactly happening to these people. And the last chapter just blew me away at how the whole book wrapped up and how kind of it all linked even bigger together. And the last book, the last short story, the last chapter was fantastic. Not all the stories in here were 5-star stories, but how it all linked together and the collection as a whole really needed to get 5 stars for me. It was so fantastic. Highly recommend the audiobook. The way the narrators put the emotion into the audiobook was top tier. Definitely use the audiobook. It is the 24th of January, and I finished Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This follows Anastasia and Nate. Anastasia is trying to make the Olympics in pairs figure skating. Nate is the captain of the college hockey team. He is already signed with the NFL to go to the NFL after his senior year, which he is currently in the middle of. She is working with her partner, Erin, to go to the Olympics. That's what she's trying to do. They meet when someone vandalizes one of the hockey rinks. One of a rival team has vandalized their hockey rink, and now the hockey rink is out of commission for the foreseeable future. It needs lots and lots of repairs. So now they have to share the figure skating hockey rink together and share the ice time. And that really ticks Anastasia off. It ticks her off. She's not pleased about this. This turns into an enemies to lovers situation pretty quickly. It's a pretty spicy book. I did expect it to be spicier because I've been told by so many people how spicy it was that I prepared myself and then was like, this isn't as spicy as I thought it was going to be. But they start to get the feelings. They start to get the feelings for each other. And throughout this book, we meet not only Nate, but pretty much the entire hockey team. I am obsessed with this hockey team. I'm obsessed with these hockey players. There are so many good hockey players on this team. Henry, if you know, you know. Henry is the golden retriever of hockey players, and apparently his book is book 3, so thankfully I will eventually get to read Henry's book. We have such great communication. The communication in this book, top tier, and we love seeing communication in a romance. You could not make me put this down. I could do nothing else except read Icebreaker once I started this book. I was obsessed and it gave me all the 5-star feels. So it got 5 stars. It just had to. I absolutely loved Icebreaker and I cannot wait to continue with this cast of characters. I love these hockey players. I love this whole team. Wildfire, I already have. I have the arc on my Kindle and I will be reading that very, very soon. It is January 27th and I finished 3 books since I last talked with you. The first 2 are Spy Family 6 and Spy Family 7. This is a manga series that follows a spy family and we follow Twilight. Twilight is like the best spy. He's trying to prevent a war between the East and the West. And to do that, he has to get close to like the minister of something. I don't remember exactly who. The best way to do that is to find his son in this kind of school and befriend the family in that way. The problem is he doesn't have a child to put in the school to become friends with the son. He adopts a little girl named Anya, who happens to be a telepath. He does not know this when he adopts Anya, and he needs a wife, so he marries Yor, who is an assassin. Again, doesn't know this. And we follow them becoming a family and also on their various missions through their spying. I ended up giving both of these volumes 4 stars. I really enjoy this series and I will definitely be continuing. The other book I finished was Breakaway by Grace Riley. This book I did not like. I ended up giving it 2 stars. There is basically no plot in this book. It follows Cooper and Penny. It is a hockey romance. Cooper is the captain of the hockey team. She is the coach's daughter. And they decide to have a friends with benefits situation. That is pretty much the whole book. They decide to be friends with benefits and they end up having 5,000 smut scenes until you get to the end of the book where they decide to be in a relationship. And that's the entire plot of this book. There is nothing else to tell you. Really, the smut was not good. And if you're going to write a book that's entirely smut, the smut needs to be good. It just needs to be, if that's all you're going to give me. I'm okay with a book that's all smut, but it's got to be good smut for it to work. I did not love the characters. And for all of those reasons, that's how I got to my 2-star rating. It is January 29th and I have finished Time to Shine by Rachel Reed. I have finished it. I gave it 3 stars. Unfortunately, there were just some things that did not work for me in this book, but there were some things that I did like. I did really like the demisexual representation in this book and the bisexual representation in this book between our 2 main characters. And I did really like the look of being out in the NHL. So this book, if you don't know, follows 2 NHL players. One is Casey. He's the hotshot hockey player on the Calgary, not Flames because they can't obviously use the NHL name, but the professional NHL team for Calgary. And Landon is the backup goalie who is called up from the farm team when one of the goalies gets injured. They become roommates through the process of becoming friends. Casey really wants some friends. His team kind of gives him a hard time and he really wants a friend. So he asks Landon, since Landon needs a place to stay, to move in with him. They do. They become roommates and then a relationship happens from there. The things about this book that I didn't love were the character work in and of itself. I did not find these characters super intriguing, and to be honest, they kind of felt a little unrealistic, especially Casey. He is so bubbly and so excitable and such a puppy dog character, but almost to the extreme that it became a little bit disingenuous, and I don't think the audiobook narrator helped. The way the audiobook narrator changed their voice to just be constantly excited to differentiate between Landon and Casey made it almost worse. And it just kind of made me not be able to kind of believe these characters in and of themselves. And I just didn't overly care about their romance. That is the end of my hockey romances for this month because I just finished my hockey romance vlog. So now we only have 3 days left of the month and I have books that I need to finish. I have book club books and read-alongs that I need to finish before the end of the month. So that is what I'm transitioning to for the last couple of days of January, is finishing some books that I've been working on through the entire month. I've been reading The Engagement Party for like 2 weeks. I've been reading Eye of the World since the first day of January. So I'm going to leave you and I will talk to you as I finish those books. It is January 31st and I finished 2 books yesterday, the 2 books I was currently reading. So I have cleared my January TBR. I did all the things that I needed to do except for one, which I'm going to do today. So let's talk about these and then I'll let you know what that is. I finished Eye of the World, which is the first book in the Wheel of Time series, obviously. I will be reading through this entire series this year and it will probably float into next year. So this is going to be quite the project for 2024 and the start of 2025, but the first book was actually fairly good. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I think for the first book in a very large fantasy series, I think it was very strong. It's a lot of world building. It's a lot of setting up what's to come. So there's a lot of setup happening, but I feel like it did a good job with what it was trying to do. I liked the characters a lot. I really liked the female characters in these books. They're my favorite. Egwene, Moraine, Nynaeve. They are my favorite characters. I do love the boys as well, except Matt kept making me have like a face palm moment every 5 seconds. I did like the characters. I liked what the book was trying to do so far. It really felt like Lord of the Rings. You can definitely see that Robert Jordan was influenced by Tolkien in these books. You can see that woven through the narrative. I'm excited to move on to The Great Hunt next month and see kind of what we are laying out, because I'm sure, because I don't know where the story's going, that I didn't see all the threads that this book was laying out for us to get to through the next 14 books. 13 books in a prequel, and I'm excited to see how this continues on. But 3.5 for the start of a very large fantasy series, I'm happy with that. I wouldn't expect it to get much higher than a 4, especially since I don't know exactly where we're going. I'm just learning these characters. I'm just learning this world. I think that's a pretty solid start, and I'm happy with how it went. The other book I finished was The Engagement Party by Darby Kane. This one is a shocking 2.5 stars. And I say that's shocking because I put this in my video for Cheetah Girls recommendations because I was enjoying the first half of this book so much. A group of friends come together for their friend Will's engagement party, and they had a friend, Emily, that was murdered in college. And another friend committed suicide shortly after and was always blamed for Emily's murder. And somebody does not think that's the case. I loved the murder mystery aspect of this book. I love a murder mystery. They're not thrillers. Murder mysteries are different, and I do enjoy a murder mystery. The first 30 chapters of this was like a high 4-star for me. I was having a great time. The second half of this book really fell apart for me. It seemed like the author didn't really know how they wanted the story to wrap up, and we put in every twist and every outcome that we could possibly have in this book. And it felt kind of like Whiplash a little bit. It was like, oh, look here, oh, look here, oh, look here. And I really don't like it in a murder mystery. I think the best part about murder mysteries is that they're very intentional in how they lay out what is happening, how they bring you the breadcrumbs of who amongst these like small group of people in this secluded setting is the killer. It just felt messy. The second half of this book felt messy. And that's sad because I was really, really enjoying the first part of this book. It's my last read-along, buddy read thing that I needed to finish for the month, so I finished them both. And I'm basically done my TBR for the month, except that I need to still catch one Bookemon. Who's that Pokemon? I have not caught the January Bookemon yet, which is to read a children's book, so I'm going to be reading a middle grade. I have the entire day to read a middle grade. That is doable. So I'm not going to close out this wrap-up vlog yet because I have full intentions on finishing another book this month. I know it's January 31st, but it's a middle grade. I've already started. I started about an hour ago. And the audiobook is only 5.5 hours on normal speed. I'm reading Bridge of Souls by V. Schwab. So I should be able to finish that today and catch my January Bookemon. I really have no other choice because I want to catch the January Bookemon. So I have to do it. I have to finish it today. There's lots of sprints happening. It should be fine. I can hang out in the comments of sprints and read a middle grade. I'm not going to close out this vlog, even though normally I probably would because it is the last day of the month. But I have one more to finish, so let's go do that. It is February 1st and very late last night, minutes before I went to bed, I finished Bridge of Souls by Victoria Schwab. This book I ended up giving 4 stars, which is pretty typical of this series. I think I've given them all 4 stars, so it was about the same for me as all the other books. It was a solid middle grade. It had spooky vibes. We had our ghosts. This series follows Cassidy. If you don't know, Cassidy almost drowned. She almost died. A ghost Jacob pulled her out of the water and saved her life, which bound them together, and now Jacob is her best friend. Her parents are very into the ghostly world. They have a TV show kind of looking into hauntings and places that are haunted in the history of hauntings. And she is going around the world to film a TV show with her family. In this book, they are in New Orleans and they come up against a spirit, which happens in these books, that they have to figure out how to handle and deal with and get rid of. It was a pretty solid end to the series. I'm glad I finished the series. I enjoyed my time with it. And this is the first series that I finished of my 28 series to finish in the year. Should I be concerned that the month is over and I only finished one? And even if I finish 2 a month, I have not finished all 28 series? Yes, I probably should be, but that's okay. We at least finished one. I'm going to take it as a win. But since the month is over, it is time to wrap up our month. This is my last clip for this vlog. It's time to say goodbye to you, but first let's look at a little bit of stats. This month I read 18 books, which resulted in 6,385 pages. My best book of the month was actually very hard to pick. I had 2 5 stars and they were very different 5 stars. We had How High We Fall in the Dark and Icebreaker. These are very different books. They're very, very different. They are not the same books. I think technically my best book was How High We Fall in the Dark, but if you were going to go off enjoyment, it's probably Icebreaker. So they're both great. Take that with how you may. They're both fantastic. It just depends on what you want. Sci-fi, romance. This is a much more hard-hitting book. This is a good time. Both are great. My worst book of the month was The Improbable Magic for Cynical Witches. I didn't like this. You just saw that in the wrap up, so I won't go into details. But it was one of my 2 stars, but it was my least favorite of the 2 stars that I had. But that is the end of this wrap up. What is your favorite book from January? Let me know down in the comments what kind of your standout first book of the year was. But thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.